press. Good afternoon, Bermuda. I understand we're live. Parliament is soon to consider legislation consequential to the government's plan to invite a substantial capital injection into the island that will lift our economy, create desperately needed jobs and new opportunities for entrepreneurs, and provide us with a new strategic asset, a new first-class airport terminal building. The needs for the airport have been well established and long known, but the solution has been hampered by Bermuda's debt burden and an annual fiscal deficit, both of which, as you know, the government has been addressing. So we don't have the money to simply hire somebody, hire someone to build it, and it is not prudent to go deeper into debt by borrowing more money. The UK government, as you may recall, provided an entrustment letter as we proceeded with discussions with the Canadian Commercial Corporation, or CCC, a Crown Corporation of Canada, and their designated contractor, Acon Incorporated, to see if we could come to terms to make a new airport terminal a reality. Consulting firm Deloitte was contracted jointly by the Bermuda and UK governments to conduct an independent appraisal of the method of procurement for the redevelopment of Bermuda's airport using CCC. The purpose of this engagement was to evaluate the business case, the value for money, and affordability of the existing proposal, and to provide a high-level cost effectiveness opinion for the proposal being put forward. The engagement also assessed whether the existing analysis and documentation on the proposed Bermuda Airport redevelopment was sufficient to support an investment decision based on HM Treasury's Green Book guidance for the evaluation of public sector spending proposals. It's important to note that HM Treasury's Green Book prescriptions assume a competitive bid process, not a P3. We are using an incremental process for procurement for this project in the form of a P3. And while the Bermuda government is not obliged to follow Green Book prescriptions, we accepted the Green Book guidance as some of the highest in the world with regard to public sector procurement. So we used the findings of the Deloitte report to enhance the due diligence of the project. Last week, Monday, I provided Parliament with an overview of the airport redevelopment transaction for members of Parliament. It was the first fulsome public description of the transaction that would bring Bermuda its first purpose-built airport. It was also released directly to the press on Wednesday. On Friday, we further released to the press the requested overall business case entrustment report and an independent assessment on value for money report. In doing so, we have now fulfilled the requirements of the entrustment letter established by the Foreign and Commonwealth Office, laid out the full business case as proposed by Deloitte. The value for money assessment highlights how the airport redevelopment project compares with similar P3 deals, and concludes that overall the project achieves value for money for the people of Bermuda. The summary provides the highlights of the comprehensive overall business case entrustment report that fulfills the entrustment requirements established by the Foreign and Commonwealth Office, and addresses the gaps identified by the Deloitte report. These reports, made public last week, have provided a thorough and detailed analysis and concludes the government is taking the best course of action under our current circumstances. This is verified by the independent assessor. So in a nutshell, this work says a few things. A, it demonstrates that the project is supported by a robust case for change. B, it describes the analysis undertaken by the government to optimize value for money. C, it shows that the project is commercially viable. D, it outlines the government's view that the project is financially affordable. And E, it provides evidence that the project can be delivered successfully. The reports further show that this transaction provides value for money, and all of the gaps identified by the Deloitte report have been addressed. Bermudians should know that after careful consideration and much consultation with leading experts, the government is satisfied that the CCC solution is not only the best solution to a pressing problem, but will bring many advantages and will be useful to the long-term future of Bermuda and Bermudians. Those are my formal comments, and of course, I'm happy to take any of your questions.
Since you felt all along that this project was the best option, what gave you such insight now that the actual due diligence and reports have now been completed almost 2 years since you signed the MOU?
Well, I had been thinking about it for a long time before it became public, but I think that as an opposition spokesman for finance, I was probably more acutely aware of the constraints the Bermuda government was under, and if we were so fortunate enough to win the election, would be under my administration as finance minister. So I was under no illusions when I came into this job that we would be severely constrained. But my insight into this probably has more to do with sort of 40 years being in financial services than anything else, being involved with investment decision making from a variety of different perspectives. And so it became clear to me that in view of the parameters that constrained us, we really didn't have that many options, any real viable options that were a sort of that would destroy Bermuda government's credibility with creditors. And so when I became aware of this model, I certainly thought it was worth pursuing. It's just a situation where, having many years of experience, you can come to you can come to realization early, but you still have to go through the process that we've gone through to have other people agree with me, and that's what we've done.
Well, wouldn't you agree that the process retroactively justifying it is not a very good process?
I think it's an excellent process.
You signed the deal, you started.
Well, we could do one or two things. We could do it your way, and 5 years from now, maybe we'll create some jobs. We'll have 5 years time. Maybe we will be lucky enough to not have our airport destroyed, or to have part of it break down so we have to spend $200 million just to keep it going. We could do it your way, or we could do it this way, where we can actually move the process forward. And it really hasn't been that expeditious, right? Been doing this for almost 2 years, okay? Not almost 2, over 2 years. Been doing this over 2 years. It's not that expeditious, but it could be a lot longer. And in view of the fact that the problem needed a solution, and that we could find a solution that worked. I think that we've done extremely well insofar as that's concerned.
But I think none of these reports that have been released on Friday would have been likely undertaken had the Deloitte report not pointed out.
Well, there's a difference between writing a report and not having done the analysis.
Mm-hmm.
Right? There's a big difference. What these reports show to you is that the analysis was done. It doesn't mean that the analysis wasn't done, because it was. It's just that you as a member of the press and the public now have a report to show that it was done. But it was done anyway. That's what we do in the Ministry of Finance.
Yeah.
And so, and that's the difference. Don't make a mistake to think that this analysis wasn't done if you didn't have a report.
When was it done then?
The reports have been recently done, but the analysis was done up front. And you asked me that question before, and I gave you the same answer.
Any other
Okay,
questions?
yes, I have another question. Sorry, Mr. Daly. My question now is, what is the true financial cost to the taxpayer of this deal for the 30-year period?
That's in the report, and I think for we've done it in the present value terms, which you have to discount the cash flows forward to today. And if I quote a number, I know I'm going to misremember it, but I believe it is somewhere about $500 million. But it is in the options report that I published a couple of months ago. And it's also similarly in the entrustment reports that we're referring to today. It's all there. But the real cost is not the nominal cost, it's the present value cost.
Can I follow up after the press conference? I can clarify some.
Sir?
Mr. Richards, this is going to Parliament next week, I presume. Are you anticipating a battle with the other side, and is there any opportunity, or is there any risk or option of this thing not going through Parliament?
No, I'm confident it'll pass through Parliament, and we are ready for any battle or opposition. We're ready.
And what will be the timetable after that?
It has to go through the Senate, even though it is a money bill, so it won't be voted on in the Senate. And you might find this surprising, but the lawyers are still duking it out on some of the fine points of the agreement. But I expect that will be done shortly thereafter. We're still looking at signing the project agreement somewhere in early December. And after that, away you go.
Did you think it would take you 2 years to get to this point?
No, I never thought it would take this long. But I guess I'm naturally optimistic, but I really didn't think it would be this hard.
But it's been worth it.
I think so. Let's not count chickens before they hatch. We just deal with legislation here. You don't have anything on the ground, so we're still a long way to go. But I do believe sincerely that once the project starts and Bermudians start getting employed and people start to see stuff coming out of the ground, and once the project is finished and the terminal opens, people are going to see what we in the government see.
3 years.
Yeah, 40 months.
So your initial timeline for breaking ground before Christmas at a previous press conference still stands?
But in some ways, we've already broken ground in some ways, because there's a pipeline that runs across the site that we're now having to dig up and replace. So if you go down to the airport, you see some guys working on it now. But the main effort is a little bit behind schedule.
So for those questioning the move today by MOVE, which was a mediocre protest, there were a lot of Bermudians that feel this is a done deal. What's your reaction to today's protest? And
I'm not sure what the word done deal means in this context. We haven't signed the agreement, and I just finished telling you the lawyers are still duking it out in fine points. Certainly the material aspects of the deal are agreed. I've already said that. The costs, The risks have been clearly defined. The timing, the design, all that stuff is done. But we still haven't raised the money. I shouldn't say me, we, ACON, still haven't raised the money yet. So we still have that hurdle to do, and that cannot be done until we get this legislation passed. What do we mean by a done deal? Do we mean that we have general agreement? Oh, sure, you have general agreement. But done deal isn't done until it's done. And it won't be a done deal till the ink is dry on the paper and people start working down there at the airport. That's when at least the transaction is complete. It's what we call financial close. And financial close means we've signed the paper and we've gotten the money from Wall Street. And then we can start. That hasn't happened yet.
Good afternoon, Minister. Do you ever have any regrets that if the project had been put out to tender, then perhaps you would have more support for this project going forward?
If the project had been put out to tender, we would have wasted another X years, right? One thing I'd like to point out, and of course, past history is no guarantee of future results, as we used to say in the investment business, but one important thing is important to note, that there has never been an off-balance sheet tender process that's been successful for an airport this size. Never. They've tried it in a few of the other islands and has not worked. So, we just have to sort of live in the reality that surrounds us. That and that wasn't the reason why we chose to go this route. That wasn't the reason. I found that out afterwards, quite frankly. But some folks think that have this notion that somehow this tender process is magical. It isn't. And all you have to do is look around Bermuda and see how much it's cost us in overruns. What we set out to do is to have a project and a process that mitigates the risks. We're all about risk management here. Because when you look back at our recent history, not even recent, you go back to UBP days, right? You had major projects that just run amok in terms of cost overruns. You know what? The Bermuda economy and the Bermuda government was in the financial position to where, hey, didn't matter very much. Just paid the difference. But now, when we owe almost $2.4 billion, I cannot stand up here as a Minister of Finance and put my blessing on that kind of process. Can't do it. It would be irresponsible of me, and you and everybody in Bermuda would rightfully kick my backside to the curb, right? So, you got to take your responsibility serious. We're in a financial bind, but we still want to do this. We got to find the best way to do it. Now, if the best way means that we don't use the tender process, I'm fine with that, because I know that really hasn't been great for us in the past. And I know that the risks involved with the tender process, I can control almost to the dollar. And if you look at the risks and the rewards, we've got the best deal here.
So in layman's terms, you still feel that, because the one concern I'm hearing is the signing off of revenue for the next 30 years.
Yeah.
You still say because we have no money, it's best to just send this revenue straight out to Canada?
Well, I'm glad you asked that.
Explain that?
No, I'm glad you asked that question.
Because
I'm glad
that's
you
what I
asked that
get.
question. That is a commonly held misconception, all right? There is some revenue that's being transferred to the entity we call Project Co. for now. It's going to get its real name very shortly. That revenue gets transferred over there, but the notion that somehow that money is going up to Canada is false. Totally false. That money is going to go to operate the airport. You're going to pay salaries, all that sort of stuff. It's going to go to maintain the airport. It's going to go to pay the interest on the debt. it's gonna go to pay back the capital of the debt. There's a whole lot of things that's gotta be paid off before anything goes to Canada. And by the way, the deal that we've struck, which is really something that I think has been kind of overlooked by members of, dare I say, members of the press, is that what we've accomplished in negotiations here is pretty spectacular, whereby the actual owners, ACON and their equity owners, once they get back their money from dividends, the money that they invest, is, I think it's about $63 million. Once they get back their money in dividends, all other profits after that get shared 50-50 with the government of Bermuda. So there's no sending millions of dollars back to Canada. That money is being spent on our asset, our airport, right? And what profit goes back after their initial investment is shared half and half between Bermudians and the other investors. So there's no sort of shipping money overseas. That is a complete misconception.
So one further question, in layman's terms, what do you say to the layman critics that say once they get their money back, and in the interim, why they can't pay their own light bill? Why does it have to come out of my pocket?
Because we are partners in the deal. So, the Bermuda government and Project Co and their investments are in a partnership. It's called a public-private partnership. And when you have a partnership, certain one set of partners puts up stuff, and the other partner puts up stuff. Okay, what are they putting up? Well, they're raising the money, they've got the expertise, they're designing it, they're building it. Okay, that's what they're putting up, and they've promised to run it at an IATA optimum level standard. So that's what they're contributing. We have to make contributions. Bermuda has to make contributions. What are we contributing? Well, it's our land, obviously. We're contributing by transferring those revenues that you talked about, transferring those revenues to Project Co. That's another one of our contributions. Well, some of our other contributions are subsidizing electricity and those sort of things that we call retained services that we're still paying for. We are making those contributions to make this project work financially, right? So we make our contributions, they make their contributions, and hopefully the two sets of contributions are enough to make the project work financially. Because if it doesn't work financially, we can pass legislation, we can sign agreements, we can do all kinds of stuff. But when we go to Wall Street to get that money, we're not going to get it if it doesn't work financially. The project is not economical. The Wall Street people will figure it out, and we won't get the money. So that's the reason why we have to chuck in things, they have to chuck in things, and between a lot of us as a private-public partnership, we can get this thing to work.
Thank you very much.
Anybody else?
Yeah. Can you
Mr.
clarify-
Johnson.
Did you, well, I can ask, everybody can leave, I can ask.
No, go, because once I'm finished here, I'm done. I got to go back to Parliament.
Well, I do have one question I'd like to ask when Nicholas left. So two questions. The first question is, did you say there's never been a tendered project that came in on time, on budget? Is that what you said, or did you?
No, that's not what I said. What I said, that there has never been an off-balance sheet tendered project for an airport this size that's been successful.
Globally.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I thought you were making a reference to tendered projects on the island. The convention.
No, we've never done off-balance sheet.
Okay.
We've never. It's one of the reasons that we're having problems with people getting their heads around this, because we have never done an off-balance sheet deal like this in Bermuda before, ever. The hospital deal was a P3, yes, but it wasn't off-balance sheet. All right, this one is. This debt is not going to be on Bermuda government's books. And what I'm saying that the other islands mainly who built airports, who tried to do it off-balance sheet, when they tendered it, they couldn't get a successful tender. So they went, it would take 2 or 3 years to get to that point, and then you didn't get the money, and you didn't get the deal. And that's where we've avoided that.
What day is it going to be going through in front of the House?
Pardon me?
Station. What day is the legislation going in front of
It's
us?
not
Friday.
Friday?
Yeah.
So a week from Friday?
Friday.
Friday, as in this Friday.
Just one last question, has the UK Foreign Commonwealth Office gave the okay with, that you've met the obligations in the entrustment letter?
You said that.
Yes, well, we sent out the papers to the governor Friday. And they're not required to say anything. I mean, it's just a bit odd, but they're not required to say, yes, you know, it's, what's required is for the government to send us information and say that, you know, this fulfills the requirement of the entrustment. I mean, that is what officially gets done. But you know, unofficially, we've gone back and forth with them, and everybody is on board that what we've done satisfies the requirements. I have to say this, though, our friends at Wall Street need some sort of letter of comfort from the Foreign Commonwealth Office to say that Bermuda has done what it has to do under this entrustment letter, because we need to show the investors that we have the authority to do this deal, the legal authority.
And once that happens, you're confident they can raise the capital.
Yes.
What happens if they don't?
Well, then we all lose. But you know what? We have been working with them. We've been working with the rating agencies. We got a preliminary credit rating of A- for this project. But that's completely separate from Bermuda, because Bermuda's credit rating is A+. Okay, but this project as a standalone project, with the contributions that I've described, right, has enabled this project to get preliminarily an A- rating. So we should be able to get the money that we need.
So to those protesters today, waste of time?
I can't comment on their, what, you know, I've had a meeting with them before at Devonshire Rec, and unfortunately it wasn't a very pleasant meeting. But you know, that's the nature of democracy, and they're entitled to their opinions.